Welcome back for more from our workshop in the 2021 NICE project. I think in Tarzan, the notion of civilization is pretty well spelled out in another way. Tarzan's ability to read and write sets him apart from the apes, the African villagers, and even the lower class sailors in the novel. His literacy is what allows him to recognize himself as a human being, not an ape. It isn't what he looks like. He thinks that's weird. He doesn't look like the apes, but it's really when he becomes literate that he sees he's not an ape, and that there's an alternative label, human, man. Then he sees himself as a man who is superior to others unlike himself. And is this attitude relatable today between, say, educated and uneducated people? I think it is. I think there's a divide between educated and uneducated people from both sides. More uneducated people tend to be suspicious of educated people, and educated people tend to be suspicious of uneducated people. I mean, this notion of literacy, this book is relevant on that issue too. Thoughts?
No, I think you raise a very interesting point that I hadn't really thought of and phrasing it in those terms. Yeah, I think that as things like public schooling and things have raised the overall literacy rates quite high, we do kind of presume that if you are not literate, then you must not be smart. When in fact, when you look through history, plenty of people were plenty smart without necessarily having a high degree of literacy. Maybe they knew their letters, maybe they didn't know that at all. But you could not be an idiot and survive in the past. Life was too hard. You had to do certain skills to be able to survive.
Right.
I do agree
Now
that
I think it's more about education than literal literacy, I would say.
I do agree with you that socially, I think that we do kind of have what is perceived as being that, Niles, Kramer, and Fraser.
Yeah. Good example.
I know things and I taste wine. And no offense to you, Deborah, because you are a fine taster of wine. Versus the I'm the salt of the earth, kind of character. And yeah, I think there's an unnecessary divide at times.
Yeah,
and I think it's
I don't
forced by different TV and media.
Yeah, I am not by any means supporting the divide or encouraging it. I agree. I think that I was just trying to point out that this is, again, like you said, in TV and media, this is a book that for generations has kind of perpetuated that division in a way that in the book, the uneducated characters, like the white sailors, for example, the lower classes, they are not thought of in this book in the same way as the educated, white, wealthy people in the book. And I feel like that is a similar thing that we see still playing out today among educated and uneducated groups of people. I mean, the difference between, how some people would view a college graduate as opposed to someone who stopped their education after graduating from high school. We still have those kind of divisions and those kind of preconceived notions about what that means or what it represents. And I'm not saying that's good or right. I'm saying I'm aware that it exists. And I feel like this book kind of has those elements in it. The another thing that I think is in this book is this is probably going way out on a limb, but if you think about, we were talking about Edgar Rice Burroughs being American, of English extraction, but American. And, one of the most controversial things in the history of America is this notion of, oh God, how do I say it? Like having the right to defend your home, your property, your person,
Stand your ground.
Yeah, it's the right to carry, a gun or, to protect yourself. Okay.
Constitutional rights.
Yeah, but sometimes those have been twisted and certainly they're not always equitable, shall I say. Not everybody seems to have the same rights, even when we're all supposed to. The law treats people differently depending on their education, their race, their wealth. I mean, there's a lot of problematic stuff about our constitutional rights sometimes. But think about this: Tarzan is the epitome of defending his corner of civilization. There's at least one or two scenes in the book where he defends the treehouse, his parents' home, if you will. He's defending his little corner of civilization from whatever savages are trying to destroy it. And it's first, there are animals there are jungle animals that attack the treehouse. The apes attack the treehouse. The low class white sailors attack the treehouse. I mean, this kind of reflects that early 20th century American attitude, right? And it's not even early 20th century, right? It's this kind of just American attitude over the decades and generations that, that's your responsibility as the man of the house, if you will, to protect your property, as it were. The thing that struck me about the book is that in the early 20th century, as darker skinned immigrants were flooding the country, especially in urban areas, a lot of white American males especially, feared that their culture would be destroyed by newcomers who did not understand or care about it. And the suburbs were born out of those times, and they tried to protect the suburbs in the same way that Tarzan tries to protect his home. Keep out bad things, I mean, it was just, there's so much in this book that really, just struck me as modern issues are, I don't want to say reflected in this book, but it's like, did this book help create some of those problems? I don't know, but the popularity of the NRA and guns as defensive property, and representing freedom, that's even the January 6th insurrection and attack on the Capitol building was, the majority of those people, somewhere in their minds firmly believed they were protecting something they believe in. I don't believe what they believe, and I don't support that insurrection and the attack, but I can see that similarity of thought process in what has come out in the media as their reasoning and everything, and some of the kind of issues that come up in this book. It's just it's bizarre that this weird little book from 1912 that I've always had in my life in this kind of special way with my dad and his enjoyment of it, and he just loved tree houses. It's now I'm thinking about it in whole new ways that are just so unpleasant. Does that make sense?
And as mothers, we are the lioness protecting our cubs. I mean, that's just
We're Kala, the she-ape, right? We're Kala.
That's just human nature to protect your home and your hearth.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think Tarzan, the manly man, does, in a sense, represent, that kind of instinctual, protective part of all humanity, whether it's male or female, which kind of brings me to gender roles and norms and sexuality. Got to talk about this real quick. In a sense, Tarzan's character is the manly man, right? But he also displays behavior that's outside of the confines, if you will, of traditional manhood. He rescues two people mainly in this book, D'Arnot and Jane. He rescues D'Arnot from the African tribe. He rescues Jane from, the ape Turzak, sorry. And many in the actual writing, Burroughs used many of the same phrases and words describing both situations. They're almost like mirror scenes, if you will, as far as the language used when he wrote those passages. I already mentioned that D'Arnot later supports the reluctant Tarzan financially. I say reluctant Tarzan because there is at least one passage in the book where he kind of demurs and doesn't want to accept D'Arnaud paying for everything. But Tarzan has no money. I mean, he has a hunting knife. He doesn't even have clothes for civilization, right? And D'Arnaud is wealthy and he is paying for everything. And that is a kind of a similar to the monetary motivation for marriage, which Jane goes through when two people ask her to marry them. The first is this kind of gross rich guy that her father owes money to, and she feels, she's going to have to marry him to basically erase her father's debt. And then the second one is William Cecil Clayton. He's very wealthy because he's inherited what's actually Tarzan's inheritance. But, she has a financial motivation when she's looking at marriages. Again, 1912, women, that was a huge part of who you married for a woman. Were they wealthy? Could they take care of you? And potentially your parents, your extended family. So there's a lot of similar language used when Burroughs writes about these two characters, D'Arnaud and Jane, and their relationships with Tarzan. There's a lot of similar language used. So here's my question, and I ask this question because it's been debated for decades in academia and chat rooms and everywhere where anybody was willing to talk about Tarzan. Do we think that Burroughs intentionally or unintentionally put some latent homosexual qualities into Tarzan, the character, and the books? Could Tarzan unconsciously feel a homosexual desire for D'Arnaud, despite his apparent attraction for Jane? And is D'Arnaud's treatment of Tarzan like that of a kept man or paid sexual partner? Thoughts on the gender roles and norms and sexuality in the book?
I, in reading the book, did not get that. Maybe I would have if I were, gay myself. But what I did definitely get is that Burroughs felt a homoerotic attraction for Tarzan.
I love it. He loved his own character so much. Well, yeah, if you read the descriptions of Tarzan's physical self, it's like, okay, this Burroughs guy has got a thing for Tarzan, his own creation.
I think it's much in the same way as, in ancient Greece, which we know did practice male homosexuality, and it was quite widespread and accepted. We see, just that worship of the male athletic form.
Yes.
So beautiful and so powerful. That's the sense I get from Burroughs in describing his creation, Tarzan.
D'Arnaud's older than Tarzan. Yes. He is acting paternalistic towards him in a way. He wants him, he truly wants to help him. He wants to pay for whatever needs to be paid for so that Tarzan can then live the life he should have lived had his parents not been marooned on, coastal Africa. So, that's my interpretation of their relationship. But I can see, and I do understand, some of the other critiques of the relationship that have come out over the years. Come out. Right. That was a very bad pun.
And I think that were I part of the LGBTQA plus community, I would be more tuned into coding.
Yeah.
Because I know that historically, definitely at the time Burroughs was writing, that would be something that if you were to talk about it in your art, it would definitely
be coding.
Fly under the radar. And so maybe that's why I don't pick up on it, but maybe somebody else who were
that's
to read
probably
that
true for me
that.
too. Yeah. Join us next time as we continue with our workshop discussion for the 2021 NICE project.